if he is a prophet and I don't do these things that he's asking, I will also lose my soul. You have to obey the prophet. The fact that there was another woman had taken over the role as the wife and was now going to be the legal wife, and that I had to be the secret slave wife, was very hard for me to comprehend. The only option that I saw is that I had to be obedient and trust I would understand it later, because I was already in too deep. I was just totally brainwashed, and my sense of identity was obliterated. Who was I? I didn't even know. And I just remember thinking, I am such a fool. I'm such a fool. How is this possible? How did I not know? I just hated myself. Here I was, an anti-polygamy activist, and he's putting me out there with all these girls, with all these FLDS girls. I had a change of heart, and I said, I'm not going to do that to them. I'm going to just meet people where they're at and not make it a goal to try to be sneaking people out against their parents' wishes. Well, I didn't know he said that till I saw the docuseries.
Ooh.
And I just felt a pit in my stomach. Like, wow. We had evidence of interstate trafficking that they received right away. Law enforcement received. They never even watched the videos, I don't think. This is not being taken seriously at the risk of our lives.
Mine is the only voice.
Wow.
What have I been doing?
Lay down my autonomy.
After that, it got very dark very quickly.
Hey guys, my name is Shalise Ansola, and this is Cults to Consciousness, where we discuss leaving high-demand religions or organizations and finding healing and independence through awareness and true individual sovereignty. If you're only on the podcast platforms and you'd prefer to see our faces, go to YouTube instead at Cults to Consciousness. You can join in on the conversation. It's the best way to support the show and our guests who are bravely coming on and sharing their very real stories with us. Today's guest, you have probably already seen the Netflix documentary, Trust Me, False Prophet, about the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints within this little offshoot of Sam Bateman trying to become a prophet. And he was grooming these young girls to be his plural wives in this group. And Christine went in with her husband and infiltrated the group and essentially played an entirely huge role in putting him behind bars. So everyone has been asking, can we hear from Christine? I'm so thrilled to actually have her here with us today, all the way across the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Christine Marie.
I am so thrilled to be here.
Yes, and you have been going on show after show after show, and I was so grateful to be able to snag you. I know you're on baby duty right now, we're baby watch, and so I appreciate you being willing to sneak this in before I also go into labor.
How ironic that you go into labor on this podcast and that my daughter-in-law goes into labor on this podcast. So
yes, fingers crossed. If this is my last interview before baby comes, I'll be thrilled. So one thing that I noticed throughout the documentary was dropping little hints of your story, which I know that when it came to editing, essentially you gave this years of footage to the producers, to the team, and you weren't really sure what was going to make the final cut. But what they chose and the direction they chose is to give us little clips and little snippets of your story with a predator, with someone who was also claiming to be a prophet. And as someone who interviews cult survivors, I was like, I need the full scoop, because I know that they didn't include nearly enough or all of it. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from you how this really transformed your life and helped you become who you are today in helping other victims and survivors get out of these same situations. So if you could just start us off with a little bit of your background and how you met who would become this false prophet to you.
my life story in 2 paragraphs is I converted to the mainstream Mormon church when I was 18 years old on my birthday. I got married to a good Mormon man, and we stayed married for 13 years and had 4 children. When I was divorced, I was looking for Mr. Right, because my first husband, I thought he wasn't my eternal companion. I got to find him. I prayed about who to marry, and I had this profound dream. And I saw a man in my dream, and his face was very memorable. When I was a single LDS mother, newly living in Utah, I went to my very first LDS singles dance, and there was the man from my dream. I thought, well, this is how God answers prayer because, Joseph Smith, he had a dream or a vision, and it's commonly taught that you can get personal revelation from dreams. So since I had this dream with this very specific person, and then there he was, I thought it was proof that God is real and he just manifested who I'm going to marry. And I didn't even know this person, but I thought it must be for a reason. So that's how I met him. I didn't tell him, though, at first that I had this dream about him. I just wanted to see who he was. And through his own grooming process, he told me that he had translated this sealed portion of the Book of Mormon that all Mormons are expecting to come in the last days. Long story, he had a lot of psychological tools right up his sleeve because he was an ex-Mormon, anti-Mormon con artist. He already had it all done by the time I had met him. And he saw that I was involved in some potentially very successful business ventures. I had a children's television show. You saw a teeny bit of that, in the docuseries, but I had a lot going on. The way I see it is he wanted a sugar mama, and he thought, I'm going to get this one. But I wasn't interested in dating somebody who was not LDS. So even though I had that dream, I had a tiny bit of questioning going on because he represented himself as an atheist who had previously did all these bad things, like, forged these sacred documents and everything. Well, when he couldn't get me, he changed his story and said, that was just a test. You're the first woman whose faith I could not break. I could not turn you into an atheist. That's how I knew you were the one that God sent for me.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I had that dream reinforcing it all, it contributed to me turning off my critical thinking. So I thought, that's it. This explains it. He was not this atheist. I knew he wasn't. He really was this man called to be a prophet, just like Joseph Smith. Now it all made sense. And he was said that God sent me to him because I was to be his helpmeet, his wife that helped him, like the new Emma Smith, which is the wife of the Mormon church founder, was Emma Smith, and she helped Joseph Smith with his translation of these sacred records. So that was supposed to be me. So yeah, that's how I got involved in it.
Wow. Using your knowledge of the church against you.
Yeah.
And I also find it interesting that because you were a convert, that probably also played a big role in all of the history was very fresh on your mind. And as a convert, I feel like, and I want your opinion, you dive a little bit more deep into the belief system or even the history of it because you're taking it all in and then you choose to believe it versus someone who was born and raised in it, maybe doesn't know all the ins and outs, but just goes along with it because that's what they were raised with. Do you feel like you were extremely devout because you were a convert and that set you up to further take in more information from this man?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Because I was the only LDS teenager in my high school or in my county. There were no Mormons around where I lived at that time. And maybe there still aren't. I don't know. But so when I believed in the Book of Mormon the first time, it was weird. But it resulted in so much happiness for me for years. And so many things that happened that I thought were miracles. Like I went on a mission.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go?
I went to the San Bernardino, California mission, and I had so many incredible experiences. It was a very rewarding and happy time for me. And I would pray about which neighborhood we should go door to door in, right? And then my companion and I would, go to different neighborhoods, and I would try to feel in my spiritual radar, like, is this the right neighborhood? Is that the right neighborhood? And when I felt like it was the right neighborhood, we would go knocking on doors, and we would always find somebody who had just prayed to find the truth. So many coincidences or spiritual experiences like that contributed to me just having this incredibly solid belief in the Mormon spiritual system.
Yeah.
When I met this other person, who I'll just call him Adam. So when I met Adam, the fact that he wanted me to read the scriptures that he was presenting, then he told me to read the Gospels in the New Testament and go back and forth between his false scriptures and the biblical scriptures that I had loved my whole life, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I did that. And the positive feelings that I associated with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and Acts, all those spiritual feelings got infused into this scripture thing that he had written, which sounded very similar in wording to the Book of Mormon that brought me so much happiness. So when I combined all that with some other things and the dream, I ended up believing in him.
I think it's also really interesting how he actually laid out all of his cards in the beginning. And then when he realized that wasn't going to work, he did a full 180. How do you look back on that experience now when he was like, "Oh, I fraudulently did these things and I'm not actually Mormon, I'm ex-Mormon." How do you view that part of your experience now?
I wish I was a better critical thinker back then. I was like, duh, I should have believed him when he told me he was lying. But since then, he's gone on and he's still actively deceiving people today. But since then, he's gone on and on and on with changes in his story, changes in the origin story, all kinds of rewriting of history about how things went down with me. I don't want to give too many specifics because I'd rather not give him any limelight, which he's desperate for.
Mhm.
But I look at the people who believe in him now, and he's doing the same thing to them. When they figure out this isn't right, this isn't making sense, he does a whole shift
Yeah.
and comes up with a new way to explain the past.
Didn't he also position himself as a spiritual authority within the Mormon church?
He did. So I thought it all had the blessing of the mainstream Mormon church, which I loved and believed in. I was not looking for something new. As far as a relationship goes, I would have never been interested in this man. I was dating some incredible men who were funny and handsome and successful and kind. And, I did not need another person to date. And he was at the bottom. He would have been at the bottom of the list had we just met. So he had to one up him somehow until he became, my highest priority back then was living my religion. So he had to become at the top of my religion. And he presented himself as a real authority in my church. Like the church had approved him doing this translation thing. So in the beginning, he had the disguise of righteousness, always talked about helping the poor and needy and what Christ would really do. And it was hard for me to imagine that somebody who taught such good things that I believed in, because I wanted to help the poor and needy.
Yeah.
So he harvested information about my values while we were in this dating process. And then he used all that within the context of my religious beliefs to come in until he had complete control over me.
Right. And are you comfortable talking about how he propositioned you almost similar to the way Joseph Smith did?
He had been a polygamist, and I believed that the way to be the best Mormon you could believe, I believed that in order to be the very best Mormon I could be, I had to be open to polygamy, because in that time there was talk in the women's groups about polygamy is going to come back someday. So I was preparing for whether I could handle it. And I was actually open to the idea back then. When my husband, my original husband, he worked for the CIA, and he was gone so much, like 50% of the time, I think. And I remember thinking, wow, if I had a sister wife, I wouldn't be so lonely. My brain was kind of prepped for believing in polygamy. And then he brought me into this mindset that he was going to be bringing polygamy back on the earth, and I was supposed to help him. And it was only later that I learned that after I thought I was his first wife, that, he introduced another woman Yeah, and then that's a whole story.
Did he marry you legally, or was it just like a spiritual marriage?
It's a spiritual marriage, but it was very deceptive because he had said to me that when we consummate, that would be how we became married, just like in the biblical days when they used the term know, like if a man knew his wife, that meant they conceived or they consummated. So he told me that that would be when I would be sealed to him for time and all eternity. And before that happened, I said to him, promise me you're not deceiving me just so you can sleep with me. And I looked him straight in the eyes, and he looked me back straight in the eyes and didn't even flinch. And he said, oh, how I wish I was deceiving you. You know, this has been such a difficult calling for me. He had all the right body language, you know, and he swore on his soul that he was telling me the truth. So I believed I was his wife, you know, his spiritual wife. Although he now says, I never married Christine. She was desperate to be married to me. She was trying, you know, all these things that a con artist that gaslights and that has a predatory nature would say to make sure that people don't believe me.
Yeah.
His followers, I think, might be a little confused by the docuseries because what is in there is true and it doesn't match what he has told them. So I see he's now doing another push to discredit me, paint me as someone I'm not, because he has to do damage control. Otherwise, where would his money source go?
Mm-hmm. Where was your family in this? Did they also convert to Mormonism? And did you let them in on knowing you were spiritually married to this man, or did he force you to isolate?
My family did not convert to Mormonism. And I was absolutely under extreme coercion not to tell anyone. He said if I ever told anyone, he would deny it. You know, put the gold plates, that these ancient gold plates with engravings on them, that had these sacred scriptures, it would put that all at risk. And I thought I could be responsible for destroying the plan for the second coming, so I did not tell my family, no.
Yeah, that's high stakes for sure. And that's also a play right out of Joseph Smith playbook. So, did your family then notice the decline? Because things got pretty dark with this man and the expectations that he had of you. Were you seeing them at all, or you were just completely alone in this?
No, my family lived in Michigan and I was in Utah, and I wasn't communicating anything to them, that would concern them, maybe a check-in once in a while, but they had no idea. It also didn't seem that unusual because I lived overseas so much, and at that time they weren't happy that I had joined the LDS church. We had a little bit of distance anyway. I mean, we don't now, we're so close, but that was a vulnerable period for me.
Are you comfortable talking about some of the expectations that he had of you?
Well, he wanted me to pass tests, and he would give me the scriptures talking about why tests are required. And since I was supposed to be the wife of the prophet, I had to prove myself more than other women. In fact, he wanted me to descend below all things, like almost like the trials of Job. Otherwise, people would forever and throughout eternity be wondering why I was the one in the last days called to assist him if I didn't go through these things. So he had all kinds of tests that went from smaller. I needed to sell my extra items. Anything extra had to be sold. Then it was things that were precious to me had to be sold and given up, because in the Mormon church and the days of Nagu, people sacrificed like their beautiful china and other expensive things to help with the temple. So he always pulled from things that were in my historical database of what makes sense within church history. In the docuseries, I was surprised to see there was a little clip of me doing a pageant.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was in there. Okay. So, and I was wearing a black dress, and I designed that black dress. You know, it had like rhinestones right here, and it had a flowy thing in the back, and I designed it perfectly for my body, and I was so proud of it. It was the first thing I ever designed, and that was one of the things that had to go, and I was pretty heartbroken over it. Another thing was that I had found a vintage Jessica McClintock wedding dress for when I would get married again. Because in my first marriage, I didn't own a wedding dress. We just rented one. I wanted to have a wedding dress that I could leave for my daughter. So I found like the dream wedding dress, and I was able to buy it and save it. That had to go. Things like that. So it went into this fund that allegedly helped the poor and needy. The test got worse from there. He had me separated from my children, and he wanted to make it permanent, you know. And then I became cidal. Originally, he told me it was for their safety, and then it was just so cruel and depraved. Then he exploited me, my body, for his own financial benefit. And so then I was really, I was so traumatized. You know, I don't know if I should talk about unaliving myself, but I made a few steps towards that on different occasions. And so, because I thought, if he's not who he says he is, then I have slept with someone outside the bonds of marriage, and I will be excommunicated from the church, never to be let back in. I will lose my soul. He's not a prophet. If he is a prophet, then, and I don't do these things that he's asking, then I will also lose my soul, you know, because you have to obey the prophet in order to merit exaltation. So obedience is everything. The only option that I saw is that I had to be obedient and trust that I would understand it later, because I was already in too deep.
Yeah.
I was going to hell if I did it. And he wasn't a prophet, and I was going to hell if I didn't do it. You know, I was between a rock and a hard place. But luckily, part of me still questioned, and I never did some of the things that he wanted me to do. And I said, you know what? If he's a prophet, he'll know. There was a line I wouldn't cross.
And it seemed like he used other women, or one other woman specifically, to make you feel more comfortable with the things that were going on. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that's how a lot of these men, especially these polygamous men, recruit other women, is by using a woman who seems safe as a tool, as something to buffer, as something to create this false sense of trust.
Absolutely, because women expect other women to have their back. I think it is in Norway. I just heard this saying that a woman is another woman's house. It's a saying that means you're safe with that woman. A woman is your safe place. Go to a woman. So the fact that there was another woman had taken over the role as the wife and was now going to be the legal wife, and that I had to be the secret slave wife, was very hard for me to comprehend, especially since I went through all these sacrifices and she didn't have to go through any. And it made no sense. But my brain was pudding by this time. So I was just totally brainwashed, and my sense of identity was obliterated. Who was I? I didn't even know. And then I later learned the truth of it all. It was one of the most surreal, painful experiences I've ever been through.
How did you come to learn the truth? What was it that helped you wake up from everything?
My false prophet, which is not the false prophet in the story, okay? My false prophet went to jail for violating a protective order against an ex-polygamous wife. But of course, he said it was due to false accusations, just like Joseph Smith, right? So I didn't have a problem with that he was in jail because of false accusations. That made sense within the history. But when he was in jail, he had a cellmate. And when I was doubting and ready to leave the whole thing, he told me, before you give it all up, I just want you to meet my cellmate because he has witnessed a miracle I think you need to hear about. And because I was in mourning when I had all these doubts, thinking, oh my gosh, I've lost everything for what? When I was waking up. So I wanted to go and see what this miracle was. So I met with this cellmate in the jail through the glass window, and he confirmed that he saw like a curtain of light around my false prophet, and that like things started shaking. I mean, it was just like this miraculous thing. And so I ended up feeling such a sense of relief that it wasn't all in vain, that I stayed with it for a few more weeks. I see that even with some of the Sam Bateman wives, the flip-flopping back and forth, they come to reality, and then it hurts so much, and there's such a grieving that they look for a reason for it to be true again. And I did that very same thing. But it was that person. His name was Jeff. When he got out of jail, he got out before Adam. And Adam was very upset by this. So he was trying to warn me that I was going to go through some real serious tests and not to trust Jeff, right? So Adam comes to me and sees the condition of where I am, which was horrific. My living conditions were horrific. He sees the pictures of my children and some clips of my little children's television show. I mean, I wanted to be Ms. Rachel. You know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
My predator put me through all this stuff, so that he obliterated that entire dream. But when Jeff saw all this, he had a change of heart. I mean, he was sent there to help exploit me, and he had a change of heart, and he rescued me. He literally rescued me from this nightmare of a
Whoa.
life. And the minute he started telling me everything, Adam is a con artist. He told, I'm sorry I helped him deceive you. He lied about you. The other woman turned out to be his fiance the whole time and helped participate in deceiving me and taking my money and not just my money, but the lifeblood from my soul, my dignity, everything that a woman holds near and dear to her heart. So these two came and said, this is not a test. He is a con artist. And I mean, this was really hard for me because I had reached out to her in such suicidal despair. Please tell me if this is not true, because there is no hope for my life. The answer was, oh, Adam and I would never deceive you. Not for money, not for entertainment, or any other reason. I can't imagine the experiences that you've had with other human beings that you would even imagine such a thing. She was complicit. And Jeff, when he saw it with his own eyes that day, he freed my brain and started making a plan to get me in a safe place.
Do you remember the first thing he said to you when he started explaining that Adam was a con man?
Yeah, he said Adam's a fraud. There is no sealed portion of the Book of Mormon. He wrote it himself. He was writing it in jail. This didn't happen. Adam taught him how to lie, what to do with his body, like how to get through lie detection when people tell by your body language, like what to do with your throat and different things, so that he could be a liar, an effective liar. He just spilled the beans.
Yeah, he laid it all out there. And luckily, you were in a place where you were open to it, because otherwise you could have doubled down and thought that this was just a persecution complex thing.
Absolutely. And we see that happening so much in so many situations where people are trying to, get out of these psychological chains of a cult. But because so much of it didn't make sense to me, the minute he said it was the only thing that made sense. I believed it immediately.
What did that do to your psyche when you realized that it was all a lie? Because I know sometimes it gets way worse before it gets better, when you realized everything that you had gone through was essentially for nothing.
It was rough. I remember like being on my knees when they told me. I mean, fell to my knees and I was rocking back and forth, on the floor, just trying to process it all. It was like I was drowning and my life passed before my eyes, thinking of all the times I almost ended my life or was almost murdered, and all the things that I lost and all the dreams that were gone, and what he attempted to do with my relationship to my children. And I just remember thinking, I am such a fool. I'm such a fool. How is this possible? How did I not know? I just hated myself. I didn't even know how the world worked. I had good spiritual feelings that told me that he was a prophet and that this book was true. I relied on the same feelings that I had when I joined the LDS church the first time, which led to a lot of happiness. There were more involved in this conspiracy against me than just those three. There were other fake people posing as someone else, or Adam setting up emails as if they were someone else, but it was all coming to him or his fiance. So I didn't know if I could ever trust anybody to be who they said they were. So I was afraid when the plumber came over, when I was pulled over by a police officer, if I met somebody on the street, I just thought, no, this could be a con artist.
Feeling so exposed and so vulnerable. And I wanted to touch on something that you said of how it all made sense to you because of this feeling that the LDS church, and I remember having it too, growing up Mormon, called the spirit. And that's the issue that a lot of people don't necessarily clock, because when it's all positive, but that same feeling can be monopolized into something dark, into something abusive. And that's the issue when you monopolize basic human emotions and call it God, or call it a specific religion, or call it verifying that it's a true prophet, or whatever it is, call it testimony. When you monopolize those good feelings, they can be used against you. And I don't think a lot of people understand that, because plenty of people probably understand the feeling of going to church and feeling great and you're like energized and it's amazing. And all of that can be true. And you can have those spiritual experiences. And that doesn't mean that the church building you are in is the true church just because that's where you're having the feeling. Because as we've seen, people can have those exact same feelings for other religions, for other cult leaders, for other false prophets. And that's why we try to draw attention to the red flags that may go unnoticed at first, because it might feel good.
Yeah, it's true. It's that burning in our bosom, So it's an emotional experience that I thought was a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So now I teach people about critical thinking, cult psychology, and coercion, and how coincidences, like the dream was a coincidence. It turned out that I had met that actual person when I went to the Defense Language Institute in the Russian program. He was on the same campus. It was a very small campus in a different class, but I'm sure that's why when I prayed about who to marry, my brain pulled up someone. And because this man had this habit of doing a predator gaze, where they don't look away, it sticks in your mind. And that's what I pulled up. And then there he was in Salt Lake. So it was like perfect storm of circumstances that I interpreted as a sign from God.
Where did you go from here? How did you begin to rebuild? And did you also deconstruct the mainstream Mormon church at that time?
I didn't, because I thought that he tried to do what Joseph Smith had done, but he failed. For the first day, I thought, is the church wrong too? But then my brain found a way to mend it and say, no, he didn't do what Joseph Smith did. Because the very first day, his accomplice got away from him. He spilled the beans. The church had been going for 150 years or something. And, and at that time, there wasn't all the information out that there is now. It took me a while to deconstruct from mainstream Mormonism, but I really didn't know. I couldn't read the scriptures anymore because I would get a lump in my throat, because that's what led to my near death.
So then you went back to the singles words again?
I don't remember if I did that, because I got my children. I wanted to get out of Utah right away, and it took me months before I could even come up with an extra $350 to leave Utah and move to California. And so I feel like I fled Utah. There was a lot of victim shaming of me because I should have known better. I should have known that wasn't the true truth. I did not get the help that I needed to get. Law enforcement victim shamed me as well and said, if we went to trial, a jury would probably say, well, she believed him.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that what fraud is? They didn't care about the sexual exploitation or assault side of anything.
Yeah. Or trafficking.
Yeah, they only cared about the money. And I could only prove that I lost $5,000. I had receipts for that. But even that is a felony. Utah failed me. So when I moved to California, I was processing it all and so hard on my sense of self. I had previously believed I was a decent thinker.
Yeah.
I finished college. I wasn't a person with a lot of street smarts, but I didn't think I was intellectually dysfunctional. But after that, due to all the victim shaming that I received, lack of proper therapy, I think that it helped that PTSD to kind of dig in deeper.
Yeah.
So, but here's the good news. In 2002, I had my dumb little TV show on a local station. The production quality of it was so terrible because I had no money. It was a station with no budget, right? So I had my puppets and my background was just the black wall of the station. And we had a fake plant and there was no introductory music or motion graphics. They just turned on the camera and I was live. But my puppets and I would bring in local celebrities, like the guy that owned the carpet shop, and we would do fun activities with them. And then it started getting people watching, liking the show and calling in. And the owner of the little station said, I could syndicate this show. I've syndicated children's shows before, but you need to get your production quality up. So I want to introduce you to this Hollywood producer who could do that for you, but it'll probably, a graphics package like that will probably cost you $500,000. And I was so broke, I didn't know what to do. So I took my friend that was an investment banker with me, and I thought, well, maybe we can convince this producer guy to take part of the show in exchange for fixing it all up. And when I met with that producer guy, he was this Turkish guy named Tolga.
Oh my gosh.
It was Tolga. And that's how I met Tolga.
Wow. I love that. So he agreed. Or did he not agree? You just fell in love?
No, Tolga produced a DVD. It's still available on Universal, called Alphabet Fun and Games, featuring Mrs. Gingerbread and the Gingerbread Cookies, which are my puppets. I go like this because I would have a puppet on each hand. And Tolga and I fell in love, and that was amazing. We ended up forming a tech company together. That was incredible. Then I lived in Burbank for about, 8 years or something. And he accepted all my children as his stepchildren, and he helped my daughter Lola, because my Tolga is, can I just talk about Tolga for a minute?
Yeah.
You've never met anybody like Tolga, I'll promise. He's quite eccentric. He's hilarious. He's incredibly protective, was a music producer, and he had a record label when he was a very young man, 19, 20. And his record label did so great, he became a millionaire at a very young age. And he wrote a song called Sending All My Love. He put it out through his band, Linear. And it won Song of the Year, the BMI Song of the Year Awards. My Tolga did that. And he was a dance music producer and had this whole fan base, which he still has, of DJs, because the songs he would put out would have the beats written on them, so the DJs would know, back in the days when you had to use vinyl, how to mix, which songs to mix with each other based on their beats. Anyway, so he did that. He wrote the first online craps software. he developed incredible software, and he's like this digital god. Anything digital he can do. What he cannot do is like assemble a bookshelf or mow the lawn, you know?
Uh-huh.
He's the best.
Oh, I love the way you talk about him. The question that pops into my mind is after going through something so traumatic and after giving away your trust to being betrayed to the highest degree, what did Tolga do that made you feel safe enough to open up to him and fall in love with him?
He was not judgmental. He wasn't. He was born in Istanbul, raised Muslim, then became a lead singer in a rock band, like in his teens. And then he had all these experiences with women, and he just didn't care about my past. He wasn't religious. He believed in God, but he didn't know sort of religious things. He was just very accepting of me. And he uses this word, he uses the word juice, which means like kind of like power or empower. So he calls it juice people up.
Amanda mentioned this on our live yesterday.
Right?
She thought it was so funny. Yeah.
He was juicing me up all the time.
Yeah.
And he always points out what he thinks is great about me, or what he thinks I did right, or what he's excited about, something I did. You just can't be around him and not love yourself. He's this walking positive energy, and he's so creative.
I love that.
Just like me. So it's like, well, thank you, universe, for sending this man to me.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so you know how I had this show called The Gingerbread House and the gingerbread. I'm pretty obsessed with gingerbread. I decorate my kitchen with gingerbread all year. It's always gingerbread. Well, Tolga's birthday is June 5th, and that happens to be National Gingerbread Day.
How funny.
So isn't that awesome?
Yeah. That's so sweet. So you meet, you fall in love, your life completely changes. It starts to go up from there. And then you end up in Short Creek. So I know there's like so much time in between there that we probably skipped. But what was it that made you guys decide, you know what, I really think we just need to be in the belly of the beast. We need to help these FLDS people. You had already had a nonprofit. You were already helping people who have escaped from other polygamous groups like the Order. We've had on Priscilla before, and you were a huge part of her story. So what was it that made you both go, you know what, we just need to move to the crick?
It actually happened during 2015. There was a massive 100-year flood in Short Creek. And then 2 vans full of women and children were swept away. I think there were only three survivors.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
national news. And I went there because the creek is only 2.5 hours from Las Vegas. So by this time we were living in Las Vegas, and Toba was doing fashion photography and music videos and Las Vegas glamorous kind of things. And I had been taking people into my home, and I saw what happened. And because I had a relationship with Willie Steed, a young man from the FLDS, and a couple others, I felt like I needed to go there and pay my respects by taking Gatorade. I took like a trunk full of Gatorade to the rescue workers. I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know where to go. What I realized is I needed to go to the fire department. So I went there, and I just started taking out my Gatorade as if somebody had put in a Gatorade order and I was delivering it. And then I went up to the sign-in place, and there was a woman there that I signed in to help do more helping. And her name was Esther. She was FLDS. Then I was assigned on these crews of girls to go out, because now we were looking for trying to find one young boy who hadn't been found. It was considered a recovery, and we're trying to go through the sand and try to see if there was his remains. So the leader at the fire department put me on a girls' crew with all these FLDS girls. I mean, and there were a couple mothers there as well. But here I was, an anti-polygamy activist, and he's putting me out there with all these girls. And I was really amazed by them, actually. And at lunchtime, one of the mothers invited me to come and sit on a stump by her and eat my lunch, so I wasn't by myself. Now, I was a total Gentile. That's what they call outsiders. So I was a Gentile. I didn't even try to talk to the girls. I was just doing my job with putting the stick in the ground. And when I was eating lunch by her, she had two girls in the sand. In my mind, all of these girls were like victims of abuse. I just had stereotyped all of the FLDS as being just a community of child abuse or something. So when they were drawing pictures in the dirt, I wanted to look and see if they drew like a sad face or what they were drawing to see what was coming out. And I looked, one of the girls had just written the word love. I was so shocked by that because it just jarred me. I asked if I could take a picture of it, and I did, and I still have it. But that was really an eye-opener for me. Then when I went back into the fire barn afterwards, I was helping them with cook meals. The FLDS ladies and young ladies mainly were just so kind. I was this anti-polygamy person, and I remember thinking, they told me that they felt a good spirit about me. Something about me made them trust me. They showed me pictures of the mass funeral that they hadn't shown to any outsider. I just started wondering, like, what if I could break through? Why did they trust me? And I went home and I took down all my anti-polygamy stuff on my website. I went back the next day. I saw Esther again. Esther is in the docuseries, in the little store. I met other FLDS ladies that became important in my life. I went there thinking I would never, when I moved there, I thought the FLDS will never really talk to me or get to know me. I mean, there's a slight chance, but I thought I would be helping the people who had left the church because my recovery was so long and difficult. I felt like I could help them understand what happened to them. I had a plan to help the people who left. When I was able to make friends with some FLDS people and I realized that there were things going on that were not in the news that were which I felt were unfair towards them, I just had this whole 180. Like, no matter what they believe, they still deserve care.
Yeah.
Like, when I was victim shamed for what I had believed, I still deserved care and support. And I didn't get it. The LDS church told me I couldn't even get food from the bishop's storehouse because they don't help people like me because I had associated with fringe polygamy, So I had a change of heart and I said, I'm not going to do that to them. I'm going to just meet people where they're at and not make it a goal to try to be sneaking people out against their parents' wishes. I just want to help people on their journey experience the least amount of trauma possible and to learn to think for themselves.
Yeah.
Those were my goals.
Wow. It's amazing how much a little bit of compassion can completely shift a perspective and also just humanization. And I think that's something that is often missing, especially with documentaries. And this one trust me, did a great job of humanizing the survivors and the people who were still in. But oftentimes we get focused on the sensationalization of the people who have fallen victim to these groups. And we forget that they're just human beings who, like you said, need support, need care. I'm wondering your mindset, your mentality, having to infiltrate for so many years with someone who, in my opinion, directly mirrored the person that you fell victim to. How are you processing that? How are you dealing with that mentally?
That was really hard. That was really something that I had to battle. Sometimes I had flashbacks. And Tolga would know, and my children would know. And when I first got out of my devastating experience, I would do a lot of dissociating, and my children learned to read me so quickly. Mom, what are you thinking about? Mom, anyway, come back. It took me a while to heal.
Yeah.
So when I was doing this, it was incredibly hard for me because I didn't want to be the person who was portraying myself as somebody I wasn't, because that triggered me. Being inauthentic was hell. I also knew that Sam Bateman was an effing con artist, sex predator. And so I had to quit worrying about me. I had to just do the job.
One of the things that we talked about on the live yesterday with Amanda was she asked me what the hardest part was watching that documentary. And there were multiple parts where I wanted to just break down in tears. But the part where I actually screamed at the TV was the police officer who I felt was completely incompetent. And I would love to hear your thoughts because I know not everything makes the final edit. But when he said I didn't want to burden myself with listening to this evidence, I was like, are you effing kidding me? You don't want to burden yourself by doing your job? I just cannot imagine the feelings that you were feeling going through it. You said on the documentary, do I have to be in bed with him in order for anyone to do anything, especially with your past of being victim shamed by law enforcement? How did you not just want to go over there and strangle them?
Well, I didn't know he said that till I saw the docuseries
Ooh.
for the first, and I just felt a pit in my stomach. Like, wow. I understood where he was coming from, in that he's, a certain religion that we were,
Yes.
and you don't want like dark things in your mind, right? In the pure impurity culture. But how
I don't know, Christine. I can't excuse it. Yes, I can see why, but that's not even close to a reason to not do your job that you signed up for.
not an excuse, I just imagined that's where it was coming from. But no, I was upset because what he put me through.
Yeah.
I mean, but I will also say that it wasn't just him. He had a police chief he was following orders. And that guy, I learned, we went to lunch with Dawn from the FBI. Gnomes wanted to go to lunch with her. Gnomes is one of the characters in the docuseries. And so she wanted to go to lunch with her so that she could see that she's out. She's not brainwashed anymore. She's sorry she lied to the FBI. It was just so great. But when we were there at this lunch, we learned that the chief wouldn't even let the FBI meet me for a month once they finally decided to bring the FBI in.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. So that, there's a story there that someone needs to investigate.
Yeah.
Because why? I had evidence, Tolga and I, we had evidence of interstate trafficking that they received right away. Law enforcement received. They never even watched the videos, I don't think, until the FBI brought them. Because why did it take so long to bring in the FBI? That's what Dawn didn't know either. Because the FBI has to have something interstate to get involved. Well, we had Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and maybe even Nevada. So what the hell? Why wouldn't they want to bring in the FBI sooner?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have structures that, they were so proud that they got rid of all the FLDS officers, made the news. We got rid of all their corrupt officers, supposedly. But people in town didn't feel that way. Not everyone. They felt like there were a lot of good officers that were FLDS that were not corrupt. So now here we have all new officers. This is not being taken seriously at the risk of our lives.
Yeah. What are some things that did not make the edit? Because you had mentioned before that, or off camera, that you didn't have a hand in necessarily putting it together. And when you watched it, was there anything that came up for you where you thought, "Oh wow, I can't believe they didn't include that in the documentary"?
Yeah, you're right. We had no control over how what they put in. And they had a lot of footage that was not ours too. So when I watched the documentary for the first time, I was like, wow, wow. A lot of things I didn't know about that they got. To give you an example, there were two Turkish twins, young women who were both filmmakers, who were friends of ours because they're friends of Lola's. And so when Tolga just got exhausted of filming, we, he said, "Can you come help?" And then he just couldn't film anymore. And sometimes I couldn't film anymore. He was the main filmmaker. I was like his helper, and I did a lot of stuff just with my phone. I have to admit, I get called a filmmaker, but I'm really a cupcake maker or something. You know what I mean? No, I'm a cult expert, right? Anyway, so there was footage we had never seen, but there's also footage that we knew about that we were surprised they didn't put in, such as information about the threats of murder, the blood atonement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that was not really clear that this is what Julie was facing, and Moroni and Liddell were, once Sam took their wives, their children, and their money, they didn't need them anymore, right? So there was a real threat of them disappearing. It was a plan. So you wonder, if anybody asks, why didn't Julia come forward sooner? Don't you ask that in my presence, because there were reasons. She risked her life to come forward at all. And that was also aimed towards us too, because I asked Sam one time who merits blood atonement, because he was always teaching blood atonement. So who's worthy of blood atonement? And he looked at me straight in the eyes and he said, anybody that directly goes against the prophet. And I felt like that was a threat.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised that none of that really made it in. And he did say a time will come when men will beg to have their blood spilled. That's what he's talking about, if you remember that little scene.
Oh.
So that's one thing. I was told that there was a lot more footage of me expressing my frustrations. I'm not sure what that meant, but I was always crying and pacing the floor. And they said they had to take some of that out because it was just too frustrating to the viewer. I'm okay with that. And then there were some happy scenes that I thought might make it at the end. Like Gnomes taught me how to line dance.
Oh my gosh.
We were line dancing to Footloose, and I was just so bad, but it was so cute that she knew it. She was teaching me. I thought that might be a cute ending. Or, there was another funny ending of Toga and I kind of arguing. We kind of do these funny arguments all the time, and that was up on the reservoir where you could see the whole town, and I thought that might make it in because it made people laugh, but it's okay. When I look at the response, I have to say that the director, and she had two other directors that helped her, the directors knew what they were doing, because my goals, before we entrusted the project to them, they knew that my goals were, number one, to humanize the FLDS so it doesn't cause them any more trauma. They have enough trauma and suffering in their life. I just didn't want the public to be targeting them for some of the terrible things that happen in the world. So that was one thing. Another thing was to ensure that the people who believed in Sam are not victim shamed, but seen with empathy. And that was accomplished. Both of those things were accomplished in spades. And I have an outpouring of support through DMs and emails, just so many. And there are themes in there, and the themes match my hopes, that there's one other message I was hoping people would get out of the series, which was if you treat people with kindness, it's a lot more effective than attacking them.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot from all the responses. So maybe as a society, we can start thinking about this. You know, the other thing I do besides cult work is I help survivors of public humiliation. You know, people that have been like unfairly canceled and their entire lives destroyed. It's so hard to recover from. And these people often want to leave this earth because the whole world hates them, they think. So I sort of have an informal hotline for people who've gone through public shaming. And I just didn't want any shaming of people that they didn't. The men were exposed for what they did,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really toned down. It was victim sensitive to a T. Especially if you know what could have been in there. So I was very proud of the team, you know, the story editor, the main editors, the producers, and Netflix themselves.
Yeah.
Incredibly supportive.
Are you able to talk about how Julia's doing? She was such a force and brave and courageous and coming forward and helping with the investigation. And I'm wondering if she's still FLDS or if she was able to get her minor daughters back or how she's doing now.
She got her minor daughters back. Yes, she did. She's doing great. She lives independently, you know, makes her own money, got her own house. You know, she's doing the girl power thing. And she has a relationship with all of her girls again. And she's, you know, wherever she is on her religious journey, that's her thing. Not, you know, I can't really comment on that. But I know that she does question things and she does think for herself. And I'm really incredibly proud of her. I think she is the real hero of this story, hands down, and that she should get awards. I think she should get an award from our local town because if it weren't for her risking her life, many of the residents may have ended up in a very even worse place, like in a foreign country being trafficked or something. I only have positive things to say about that remarkable woman.
Yeah. She is incredible. Maybe one day we'll get to hear from her on the show. I am talking to Gnomes, and I'm really hoping that we can get that interview before I go into labor in a few days. We'll see. I need to reach back out to her today. So, throughout the ending, when you can tell how difficult this is on you, and you keep saying, these girls are going to hate me, these girls are going to hate me, but I have to do this. We're all on your side going, yes, we understand. And the sacrifice that you had to make too by in some ways betraying their trust just to help them because you know you've been on their side, you know what they're going through, and you can see the pain that it's causing them, and you're just trying to help them. Did any of that actually play out? We know that Gnomes is out and grateful to you, and you guys are great friends now. Did it play out for anybody else where they felt like you were betrayed, and how is that going now?
So I'm close with some of the underage girls. They're all super grateful, you know, that we did what we did.
Yeah.
And there are people that still believe in Sam know that they still hate me, and I hope that when they deconstruct that they understand that the part where I cared about them, that was authentic.
Yeah.
That was not a betrayal. I really still do care about them, and I understand their anger. And I can understand their anger about the series too, because now here we are saying all the ways that we tricked them. You know, I could see why that would be very triggering. I also know that they are safer with Sam in prison, even if they believe in him. And I believe that, I mean, more of them have come out than, I mean, since the documentary was filmed. So it's pretty exciting. There are other adults and things, but it's hard to know what we know after having been through these things, and just to know they're still in the beginning of their journey. We want to rush things, but in my situation, it's you know, they won't talk to me, and I think that, you know, they might even, because of the influence of Sam, might even come out against me or the project or something, but it's to be expected, you know, until they wake up.
Yeah.
They're just going to continue to see me as somebody that did wrong by them until they wake up.
One of the questions that we got during our live yesterday was, what was Warren Jeffs' reaction to everything that Sam was doing? Did you know of any of that? If Warren knew about it, if he commented on it?
He did. A letter came out that said that Sam had been sent away some time ago. He was not, and that you know, Warren Jeffs is still alive, and that you know, did not approve that what Sam was doing in no way has been anything that the FLDS have ever done. So there was some attempt to try to help wake them up.
Yeah, which is interesting, but because it seems like Sam just took things directly out of Warren's playbook, at least according to some of Warren Jeffs' ex-wives who I've interviewed, one of them recently, where she was like, oh yeah, I started watching the documentary and thought, well, that's exactly what Warren did. He just literally stole from his playbook. Did you feel that that was the case?
That's something that people who are married to him can comment on, but I don't. You know, I will tell you this, that when Willie Steed, the young FLDS man that we helped years ago, that really got us thinking about the crick, he came over with his wife recently, and he was in a home that had this big home theater, I guess, and it was filled with people that all watched the docuseries. And after they watched it, they all said that Sam was worse on an interpersonal level. What Sam did to people was worse.
Wow.
So, but again, you know, I can't really say it's better for people who were involved to know.
Sam had so many grandiose ideas, including getting the Queen of England, who was alive at the time, to come and become his wife. I'm wondering if, because he had such grandiosity and such arrogance about himself, did he ever come on to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In front of Tolga, who's filming it?
Well, he didn't do it like that, but what he did is he told Moroni and some of the wives, apparently, that I belonged to him as well. So I guess I was supposed to be one of the wives, which would have been cool to be the sister wife of the Queen of England. But yeah, so we knew that was coming. We could feel it. Tolga and I, we were discussing, what do we do if he says, you know, I'm taking Christine, you know? So we were going over different scenarios. Luckily, we got him for that.
Okay, so you never had to have that conversation with him. You never had to pretend that far.
No.
Oh, thank goodness. No. What would you have said?
All right, give me the question. Let me see how I would answer it.
So if I'm Sam, in my white leather jacket that everyone despises, including myself, every time that white leather jacket came on the screen, I was like, I can't with this.
I'll tell you my thoughts about that white leather jacket when I'm done.
Okay. So if I'm Sam in my white leather jacket and I say, Christine, the Lord has impressed upon me that you are to be one of my wives. And it's so painful to know that I have to take you from Tolga. I don't want to do this, but I am being commanded. What do you say?
I would say, well, Tolga is my priesthood head. I have to talk to him about it. So this is between you and Tolga. And Tolga,
nice.
Tolga would have said, I don't know. I would have just skirted the issue, but had me in his plans. But I know it wouldn't be to. I mean, he didn't need me. He didn't need so many of those women. But there was a strategic reason he wanted the different ones. Like he wanted the mothers to hide the fact that he was abusing the children, so that if DCS came, he could say, "Well, their mothers are here." He wanted, different women. He wanted to take the women from the men, so he could demasculate the men and punish them because the women actually wanted more to be with the other men than him. They hated Sam. And so he had to punish them because his wives preferred the other guys. I mean, okay, the white leather jacket. He told us that the jacket cost $750 and that he needed it to look the part of a successful businessman.
No,
right?
That is not what successful businessmen look like.
Oh my gosh. And Tolga played it up. Oh my gosh. Tolga was like, he was like, yeah, that's great. That's what you should wear to your next business meeting. And I was like, Tolga, no, that's cruel. So Moroni had this business meeting in Minnesota, I think, where he had this like $1 million sale that he had to close. Well, Sam said, I want to go to that meeting instead of you, and I'll close it, because he wanted to show the girls, the wives, that he was this big businessman. So Sam goes there in the white coat because Tolga said, yeah, wear the white coat. Okay. then he tells them this is a $750 coat. Like, what man with money, if he really had money, would tell a big business deal, the people involved in a big business deal, that he was wearing a $750 coat? Okay, then he said, I don't know why I feel the need to tell you this, but I have 22 wives. And now, in the crick, having 22 wives might be prestigious. But the CEO was a woman of that. And she went ice cold. I heard all about it. And he lost the deal.
Good.
So he lost the deal. And then the manager said to Torrance, because Torrance was the owner of the business, one of the men who went to jail, and he was there while Sam was there. He said to Torrance, do you really want to hang your star on this guy, something like that? Later, Moroni resurrected the deal, and they said Sam's not involved in it anymore, and so Moroni reclaimed the deal, got the check, and then Sam told all the girls, he showed them all the money, and said, see what I did? What a great businessman I am.
That's infuriating that it actually went through. I was happy for a second, but I love that Tolga kind of getting him back in small ways. Very small ways, but still satisfying.
Wow, I know. And then I talked to Gnomes. I mean, I thought it reminded me of Wayne Newton, but I think Elvis is more appropriate. I just thought, what is he thinking? Why did this bright white coat? The Gnomes told me that it was only $75 online. So why is he saying it's like a $750 coat and like bragging that he's wearing it?
It was, that is just like chef's kiss that it was only $75.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Was there anything else that we missed that you're like, I want to make sure that the audience knows this thing that was taken out or this piece of information, anything like that?
No. It was incredible. It was hard to watch. The next morning, I didn't cry while I was watching it, but the next morning I stayed in my bed until noon and cried, because it packed all those memories into 4 hours, and I remember it all. It just kind of all came rushing back,
Yeah.
So it's just amazing, the worldwide response. Amazing.
Yeah. I guess I do have one last question. I was wondering because it seemed like a lot of things were filmed in 2022, and then we have Gnomes come on and share how she's doing now and see the present version of her. I wondered how long it's been since people have been able to deconstruct and sort of come out of the group because someone had asked me, should you have Gnomes on? Do you think she's in a good place? And I realized I think it's been a couple years, but I'm not sure.
Oh, for sure. It's been, keep in mind, the worst of it happened between 2019 and 2021.
Okay.
And the worst things. The raid was in 22, and then the trial was in 23. Anyway, so it's been 5 years, And Gnomes has gone through a lot of therapy. Her decision to go public, I mean, she's told me it's the most healing thing she ever did. And I believe this. I used to walk on eggshells about it all too. In my case, I lived in fear that people would know what really happened to me and hate me.
Mm.
So that added to my inability to heal. I just wanted to keep it all to myself. But when you have a documentary done so well, so victim sensitive, people see where you came from and have compassion to know where you are now. When it's done this way, I think it speeds up your healing process.
That's beautiful. Well, I love that you've been able to maintain a relationship with her, and I really hope I'm able to have a conversation with her as well. Thank you, Christine, for coming on and sharing so vulnerably your story and how it aligns and how it got you to where you are now.
Well, thank you. It's fun. I mean, it's a dark story for sure. I mean, according to the response, people really felt good about the ending. So it didn't leave people in that dark place.
Yeah.
And now, oh my gosh, she's just the most wonderful, light and bright and fun person alive. I mean, experiencing life as fully as she can, a lot of hope for her future, a lot of dreams. And, she calls us her godparents, so we call her our goddaughter, and so
Yeah.
it's just, people don't realize, I mean, she's the only wife of Sam Bateman that has publicly spoken out. And so she's just getting all the support in the whole world. And I think when the other wives see that, she's not being crucified by the public, there's no stigma in saying what happened to you. There's no shame, that you can tell your story and it can be something that launches a whole new positive direction for your life. So thank you for doing this for so many people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's a beautiful thing to be able to platform people to tell their stories in the way that they would like it to be shared. That's why we love having documentary guests on so they can just have a full hour and a half to themselves because I know things have to be cut out to make space for the bigger picture of the documentary, and so we love to just zoom in and allow them to share openly. The last question I have for you is what are you doing now? What's next for you?
Well, I'm writing, and I hope to do a lot of educational work for law enforcement and maybe for the public. I want to do more teaching, and I have that critical thinking course, and I still intend to do my public shaming recovery work. I'm going to stay in the crick, keep trying to help people find their personal empowerment path, do the positive fun things as well. I just still have a goal of getting a zebra for my menagerie. I have all these emotional support animals. I keep thinking I need a zebra. So that one, let me know.
How funny. Okay. Do you have a Linda Listen moment for us?
Listen, Linda, right?
Yes.
Is that how it goes?
Uh-huh.
Listen, Linda, every state in the United States needs to look at the laws on their books and figure out how to change them so that when people experience mind control and crimes in the name of religion, that they can be in a better position to get justice and quickly.
Amen. I love that you are working on training law enforcement because that was one of my biggest gripes too of watching the trailer incident from the body cam footage, I was like, they don't know how to talk to these girls. They're just making these girls put up more defenses, and there's just so much that could have been done differently. And I really hope that people watch that and see the disconnect, and through your research and through your work can better understand how to help people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Where can people find and support you?
ChristineMarie.com. And my Instagram is Dr. Christine Marie, which is Dr. Christine Marie. And then there's voicesfordignity.org. And we're doing a fundraiser to try to raise some money for the survivors of Sam Bateman so they can have a dream fund. So if you want to, do your own fundraiser to contribute to it, get creative and, help us out.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Christine, for coming on. Do you have any other final thoughts before we go?
Yes, the theme song is Trust Me, written by my daughter, Lola Blanc. So you guys look up Lola Blanc and look up her music and give her a shout out.
Amazing. Yes, we need to connect with Lola too.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please go check out all of those links. Donate if you can. That would mean so much to the survivors. Another great way of supporting a free way is by boosting this video, by liking, sharing, commenting those words of support. Any way you interact with it is going to boost it so more people can see it, become aware of these funds, become aware of the documentary, become more compassionate to those who are coming forward and sharing their stories. And if you want to support the channel specifically, we have channel memberships where you can get early access to some of our videos, behind the scenes content, and some members only live streams. And we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/cults to consciousness. And we really appreciate everyone who's watching and sharing and subscribing. It means the world to us and to these people who are coming on. If you like this video, I'll link 2 more down here below. We have an entire incredible playlist of former FLDS people sharing, like I mentioned, a few of Warren Jeff's ex-wives, plural wives, and a few of his kids as well. So check those out. And until next time, fly your highest excitement, be conscious, and be well.